Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 100-Year Real Estate Investor. We're your hosts, Jake and Gino, and this is a show dedicated to your long-term financial engineering. Gino, how's it going?
Mr. Stenziano, doing great. How you doing, bro?
Always making it happen, big man. Today's guests are passionate about helping everyday people create their best life through real estate investing. Together, they have flipped over 700 houses valued at over $65 million. They continue to flip houses as they help everyday people change their lives by creating immediate cash flow and generate long-term passive income. So without further ado, Glenn and Amber Schworm, welcome to the show.
Hello, Jake and Gino. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys. Looking forward to it today.
It is our pleasure. And we got into a little bit before the show. That's why Gino has that big shit-eating grin on his face. But let's get it kicked off. We want to hear about your story and how you got started.
Oh, gosh. We did not start with any kind of a grand plan. We were $80,000 in credit card debt and had to make some money. This is 2007. So this is right when the market was right before it tanked.
Yeah, we really started out of desperation just because we needed to make some large chunks of money legally.
Yeah, people look back now and go, you guys were brilliant. You knew when to make your move. I'm like, you were to make my move. I had to pay some bills. I was going through divorce. I didn't have anything. Wasn't any grand vision, but we got started, flipped our first house. Made about 17 grand on that house, and that was impressive, but for us, it showed us what was possible, you know. And so then we did most of the work ourselves. The next house we did, we were midstream. We did pretty well on that, but right around that same time, Amber had to sell her car, so we had enough equity. We pulled the equity out of her car to get cash to finish the flip, and
we were desperate. We had to do what we had to do to make it work.
And I won't go through all 700 deals, but the next, and then number three, and then but the next few houses that we had two houses at the same time, and then 2008 hit, and all financing that we had lined up, we had good credit. We just didn't get good credit. It's not a lot of money, or any. And that first flip, by the way, we were down to our last $1,500 in anything, cash, credit cards, anything. Our last $1,500 with mortgage payments to make on houses and a lot of stuff. So we're a little bit scared. And long story short, we had those two houses that were under contract, and we lost our financing. The bank called and said, my friend called and said, hey, those loans are gone. I said, well, no, but I'm good for it. You can just pull some strings. You get it. He goes, no. He says, gee, it's done. It's gone. I go, no, but you can do it for me. He goes, I can't. It's gone for everybody. And little do we know that was the beginning of the end for a lot of things that happened back in 2008.
And I think it's important to note, though, that like when we started, we had like no education in construction. We were pretty dumb. like
Still am.
like to this day, Glenn still does not know how to read a tape measure. No lie. See, he was, Amber, what's the long mark halfway?
I don't know.
So, we neither one of us has college educations. We were $80,000 in credit card debt. We didn't know anything about construction.
I don't think you're making them very impressed to hear us right now.
Well,
just so you know.
I know, but my point is that I think it's really important for people to hear that, because I think real estate is such an awesome vehicle, because it doesn't matter what your background is, or if you're a man or a woman, or if you're young or old, or what college education you have. I think as long as you have like the desire to go for it and just conquer any challenge, it's like really possible.
So let's reflect back on from the very beginning. You're looking back, and I know you, Glenn, you could probably rattle off all 700 deals because they become personal and you get to know them, right? But you're looking back now, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently starting out? Because I heard Amber say she didn't have education. Would you have gotten into like getting a mentor, joining a mastermind, or any of that, even if you didn't have money? Because Tony Robbins says, do I go to the seminar or do I make the money? Well, you got to go to the seminar to learn how to make the money. So for me, it's always getting that education times action equals results. But what would you guys have done differently?
Yeah, 100%.
100% education.
I would have gotten into scaling mode in my mind quicker, and I would have also gotten into having a mentor and having coaches to get me there faster. They shorten the learning curve, right? I mean, for me, I'm writing a check, but I'm writing a check to condense my time. The older I get in life, the more I realize that I have less time. The older you get, you're like, I turned 52 this year, and I'm like, well, best case scenario, I'm in the second half. Best case, I could be in the end of the fourth quarter. I don't know. But right now, best case, I'm in the second half, just law of averages, So I start to think about that, and I realized that, gosh, if I could have condensed time from 15 years ago, I would have done that all day long.
And in the long run, it would have saved us a lot of money because we spent, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars on mistakes that if we had gotten the education and the mentoring beforehand, that we would have just totally alleviated those. So you either spend time, money, or both.
What mistakes? Like let's highlight some mistakes when you're getting into the flipping.
How long
business.
is the podcast? We made a ton of mistakes. I mean, we had,
starting from the first one, we did all the work ourselves, which we never encourage anymore because people think I'm saving on the labor cost, but what they're forgetting is how long it takes to do it. So you could have paid a contractor probably 2 or 3 times over and just gotten the job done a lot more quickly.
I think and you're probably not that good at it either, right?
No,
not at all. Not at all. I think, not having systems in place, we took a loss on like our 5th deal. We lost like $5,000 on the flip. And I share this stuff at our workshops we do. And people are always like, you talk about that? I'm like, well, yeah, I'm a real person. I talk about the good and the bad. I want people to know you can lose money, right? If you do it wrong. But I say we didn't have systems, but that loss forced us to start building systems in our business so that we would hire the right person, so that we would do a background check on a contractor, right? If they're coming, or an employee to come run our business, and just different simple things that will prevent bigger problems on their own. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And I think we didn't, without having little systems in place along the way, even to check that your people have the right insurance in place, or those simple little things that people don't think about, a checklist to make sure that you're doing things right.
Or putting batteries in the thermostat in sub-zero weather.
Yeah, how about that?
So the pipes don't freeze.
Yeah.
It sounds like more than a $5,000 mistake there.
Oh yeah, we've got mistake after mistake. I think all those little things over time you build up and start to learn. It would have been nice to have someone else that had a lot of those figured out before us that could have gotten us down the road. We bought some courses and stuff, but we didn't really have the personal coaching and stuff. And that's for us, we believe in that now, right? We believe in that strongly, and that's why we're part of masterminds. We just before we started here today, we were talking about hiring some really high-end coaches that are helping us scale our business, right? To go from 100 deals a year to 1,000. So we're trying to work on those as well.
Yeah, and those systems and the processes are really, really important. I think it was year 3. We went from 7 flips in a year to 20 flips in a year. And we started seeing a lot of things started slipping through the cracks at that point because we didn't know what we didn't know. But, hindsight's 20/20, right? So looking back, we could have made different decisions, and those ended up actually costing us a lot more money because the job, we didn't have enough manpower to even get the jobs done. So that's just another area, another testament to where, a good coach and a mentor could have kind of seen the writing on the wall before we jumped into doing 20 deals at once and had us get our ducks in a row first.
So far, your listeners are probably very impressed.
I know.
Glenn and Amber, picture this. I am at my friend's house, just moved down to Florida. I'm having a pizza party. It's a Friday night. One of the guys there is a single family turnkey, probably sells 200 a year. I have another one who's an Airbnb specialist. I have another guy who owns a property management, does Airbnb, and I'm multifamily. Friday night, Florida, air conditioning breaks down. It's 80 degrees in the house. We're all sweating. My wife looks to me and goes, well, you guys are in real estate. You want to fix the AC? And I look at her. I go, not one of us knows what the hell to do. That's why we're all successful. And we sat there and we sweated our ass off. And you know what? Air conditioning get fixed, but that's okay because I looked at them. I'm like, guys, you're a single thing. None of them, nothing. So to your point, that's not where you make money in the business, right? It's all about having an entrepreneur mind. So when you started seeing that, and when did that realization go? And what did you specifically do? Give me some examples. Going from 7 flips a year, which is probably a flip every month and a half, to doing, 1 or 2 every month. What was the things that you started changing in your business that allowed you to do that?
There's a book that I read recently that encapsulated what we did back then. I wish I read the book back then, but the book was called Who Not How. I don't know if you read that book or not. It's a really good book. Who Not How. And it's about every decision you make, you should be asking yourself, instead of saying, how do I do this? How do I do this? Say, wait, who can do this for me? And so going back, we didn't know what we were doing, but we hired an assistant, right? That was a big thing. We had someone come right to our house on our 2-bedroom condo that we lived in at the time. And we had her come. That was an assistant that took some of that paper off our back. Then we had people come on that were contractors and more like a project manager. Got to help oversee some of the projects that were happening. We hired an accountant. We started hiring people to come in to take some of the burden off of our backs. And I don't think we thought about what we were doing at the time, but looking back in hindsight, those were the best moves that we did. Now, the next level of that is to make sure you have the right butt in the right seat, right? So that's the next level of that. But the first level was just getting someone else to take that stuff off your back, because I don't know a lot about construction. I don't know a lot about a lot of things. I just know
bookkeeping or whatever. And that's the thing when you're first starting out is you don't have the finances to fund, that many employees. So when you're first starting out, you're wearing all the hats, but your business does get to a point where you need to start delegating.
So Glenn, what should you focus on? Because at Jake and Gino, we like to say we create multifamily entrepreneurs. And it seems like you can go either doing them in the multifamily space, self-storage space. What do you need to do when you're fixing and flipping deals to actually try to start automating it? What did you see that you needed to actually start implementing in your business?
So a couple of things. One is that we do a lot of fix and flips, but our end goal is to have residual income through rentals, right? So we do long and short-term rentals. That's a big, and the reason people say, well, how can we do single family, not multifamily? It's just what we do, right? It's just, it's kind of it's the machine that we have. So we're always churning out single families. That's what we're looking for. You guys are doing multifamily, so you churn that out, right? That's what you do. You guys are good at that. So we've kind of perfected the single family model for us. And now I forgot your original question. What was your original question again?
As far as implementing other stuff, because I see in the single family, your model probably changed in the beginning. You were probably just flipping them, buying them, flipping them, and saying, you know what, I don't really want the passive income. I don't want this, but that completely changed once you say, hey, I've done all the work. Let me at least hold on to this asset, let it appreciate a little bit more. So
yeah. So now I'm a house pack rat. I don't like to get rid of houses. Like we just bought a home in Florida. We just bought our dream home down on the coast in Florida. We're moving down to it. And we're like, we have a really nice home here. We're like, what are we gonna do? I'm like, we're gonna rent it. She's like, let's sell it. I go, I don't want to sell it. We can get money. I go, yeah, but I can get money every month out of it.
All right. You're like way oversimplifying that.
All right, I know. So anyway, but I think for us, we had, our business got very systematic in, now we flip houses. We don't go to them. We don't see them. I'm sure you guys experience the same thing in your business, right? Maybe not, but we're not involved in the day-to-day anymore because we have the right people that are in place that are doing that. And then we are always looking for that next, what's our next buy and hold property, whether it be a single family, a two family, a three family, it could be we're doing a lot of Airbnbs these days too, some short-term rentals.
And I think a big part of that too was just exploring other exit strategies depending on the deal, because you're right. At first we were just, all about the flips because we needed that big chunk of money to pay off debt and to, even fund our business going forward. So as we started getting more financially stable and started looking at those other exit strategies, not every deal is perfect for every situation. So some houses were better as long-term rentals, as short-term rentals, as, as wholesales, whatever.
I'm taking notes here because it's very similar, Jake, and I see Jake's with the grin and not ever selling. So I know that struck a chord with him. But it really is what we teach: buy right, manage right, and finance right. And it seems like your business model is very flexible. You started at a certain point of your career. You were buying deals. You may not buy those deals today because they may not fit your criteria. So there's really, I guess, two-part question. Number one, what kind of deals are you focusing on today to make money? And then let me piggyback that by saying, how has COVID changed things? That's another question. I don't want to forget that question because that's really important. But what are you guys looking at today specifically in the market?
In our flipping business, we are about 80% wholesales now. So wholesales, if your listeners don't know, is when you put a house under contract and then you sell that property. They do with multifamily too. You sell that property to another investor, right? Another investor. We were doing that long before it was trendy, and we were doing that. Now it's that's what everybody thinks is the easiest entry point. It's really not, but it's whatever. But that's, we do about 80 deals a year. Then about 10 deals a year, we will do a regular flip. So we'll cherry pick the flips, right? If we can make 50,000 to 100,000, 150,000 on a flip, and it's relatively simple. I'm not having to do a full gut job. I'm not having to take out asbestos, all that stuff. If I can get that done, then we'll cherry pick that. And then we'll cherry pick and handle about 10 houses a year that we hang on to. And we don't have, it's these houses are wholly owned by us. We're not owned with other investors. They're our properties. And so us and the bank, right? So we do refinance.
The big part.
They're our partners. So, but that's the model that we do now. That's what we spend our time doing now. Plus, obviously, our education business, what we do is a big part of what we do too. But yeah, so that's the model. That's where we spend our time. The wholesaling piece, it was one of those things where years ago we had accountants going, so what's this line item here? Like you did 400,000 in this. What is this called? Wholesales? Like, what is that? I'm like, well, we don't really. Well, how much money do you put into that? I go, well, we don't put any money into those. It's just a sales function. They're like, why don't you do more of those? I'm like, I don't want to do those. I feel like more of a used car salesman doing that. So I didn't really want to do more of those.
I was okay feeling like a used car salesman. I was like, let's do the wholesales.
I kept fighting her. I'm like, I don't want to do it. And then finally, one day I realized I was getting outbid on jobs. So this is pre this crazy market that we're in now, right? This is a few years ago. we're starting to get outbid on jobs because our overhead was more. We had employees and that kind of stuff. And I'm getting outbid on jobs. I'm like, you paid how much for that house? I'm like, you know what? If you want to pay that much for the house, fine. I'll sell to you for that much. I don't care. So that's what kind of started the wholesale gig. And that represents now, I don't know, well over $1 million a year in net gross profits on those, if that makes sense, on those deals. And it's a good thing that we do. And we're looking for our passive income, right? That's what we're looking for with that. So we have a lot bigger goals we want to get to, but second part of your thing was COVID, right? You asked about how COVID changed things. So I'll take on both businesses because I want to talk about both of them if I could. The flipping business changed. We were literally figuring out how we could hire salespeople more virtually because I knew that my office space was a 2,000 square foot that we own, and I knew I'd outgrow that as I grew the company. I wanted to grow the company more nationwide. I wanted to start cherry picking a few markets around the country to expand into. But I wasn't sure how to do that. I'm thinking, man, the cost of real estate, the cost of managers, the cost of all that stuff. I thought, why don't we do it virtually? And literally, I was at a mastermind that we're part of. And I said to people, we're trying to, we're having a problem with conversion. They said, how are you meeting? I said, well, not face-to-face. We're doing it virtual. Oh, you have to go face-to-face, Literally in that same meeting, the next day, the phone calls started coming in while we're in California saying, hey, the NFL shut down. Hey, NBA shut down. Hey, Disney's shutting down. We're like, holy crap, we're stuck halfway across the country. We have to get home with COVID hit. And so our business was forced into the virtual model. And we have been able to navigate and go through that. So now our staff works 95% from home, and it's all virtual, and it seems to be going well. We're trying to get better to scale that, but that seems to be better. Our seminar, our coaching business, so the home flipping workshop that we do, that was something we did in person. We did a workshop. You guys do the same kind of thing, right? And so we do these workshops. We'd have 100, 200 people come to a workshop, and we'd spend 3 days. We educate them, and some people move on to learn more from us down the road. But all of a sudden we were able, we had $90,000 invested into marketing for an event here in our hometown, and COVID hit, and Cuomo shut down all seminars, and boom, it was just shut. And I'm like, it was 80 grand. I just lost 80 grand in marketing because you don't get TV marketing back.
They don't give refunds on commercials.
We had infomercials and
radio
TV ads. Just done. I'm like, okay, this hurts. And I laid there licking my wounds. It was a year ago now where I'm licking my wounds. I'm like, what are we going to do for March, April? And then in May, we threw our first virtual event. And I'm like, I'm not going to talk to a camera for 3 days. This is ridiculous. And then I did it. We made the decision. We went, and then we went hardcore down the virtual path. And now we do one every month, and we're crushing it. We're around the country, and that business has been exploding, and we're able to touch people's lives and help them achieve wealth all around the country and do it virtually from our office right here, which is crazy. But freedom, flexibility, and I'm home with my kids at night. I'm not traveling because we got to the point where every month I was traveling, and I was like, I'm 5 days a month away from my family, which doesn't sound like much, but in the course of 12 months, it's 60 days. It's 2 months I'm away from my kids and my wife. And I'm like, it sounds good, but is it worth it? And so for me, I don't no fault if anybody wants to travel and stuff for their business, but if I can stay home and make money and help other people and be with my family and go home and throw the ball with my 6-year-old or play around my 8-year-old in the pool or my 16-year-old and let her ignore me for a half an hour. So if I could, whatever I can do, that's important to me.
I think a key takeaway there, though, especially because you guys said a lot of your podcast listeners are entrepreneurs in general. And I think a key takeaway is that it's so important to pivot, whether it's something that happens like COVID, or it's just a technology change, or, it could be any number of things that can happen. You have to adapt. If you keep doing the same thing every day, that's just your business is going to get stagnant and not grow. So, if you do want to scale and you want to grow your business, you have to take those steps. We just hired a coach, another business coach, to help us scale to the next level, because we've been scaling all these years for the last 15 years, but we still want to go even further. We started out with one company, and now we have, 5, 6, 7 symbiotic, companies that all kind of, we keep adding them. So
you know how many companies we have.
But those all, and we want to keep growing and keep pivoting and keep going to that next level.
So before we get to the short answer questions, Jake, I've got 2 points that I really need to make. I'm going to make a shameless plug. They've been talking multifaceted multifamily. We wrote the book, The Honeybee. It's a business parable. We call it the power reel. So you guys are just the example in the fix and flip model, right? If you look at it, you have an education company, you're probably doing maybe some private money, you're wholesaling, you're fixing and flipping, you're actually holding on to some rentals. So you have, like she said, it's like Stephen Covey's, it's really the synergy. You have such an amazing synergy between all those businesses, but you need to start with $80,000 in credit card debt. You need to start with that first deal to get to where you guys are. That's really, really important.
Right.
And the next thing for the 100-year real estate investor, what you're talking about is you have values, you have a values-based decision-making model where you're saying to yourself, I can do that, but I don't want to be on the road. I can make those decisions. It's important because it's quality of life and you don't want to do that anymore. And I think everybody needs to stop for a second and say to themselves, what are my values? Glenn has his values set up. He doesn't want to do that, right? And he's chosen not to do that. And maybe he's left some money on the table, and that's fine, and that's okay. But that's for Glenn. You need to sit down and think about what your values are and what your goals are and make that alignment, because those decisions are important. They're going to impact the rest of your life, because Glenn's not going to be able to throw the ball with his kid, his 6-year-old anymore, because this kid's going to get older. And when he turns 16, he's not going to want to hang out with Glenn, from what I'm hearing. So take advantage today. It's all about what your values are today, about creating that long-term mindset.
Really good point, Gino.
Yeah, really good stuff.
Your personal values and our business values, and we even hire people based on our company values, which reflect our personal values.
I think you got to make sure that like our values in our company are live it, right? So it's leadership, integrity, value, excellence, innovation, and teamwork. And those are our. I wear it on my wrist. I've got it. Our team. We all live by that. I try and make we try and make all decisions based on that. If you make decisions just based on the dollar here and now, it's like so for us, it's when it comes to financial, we have a situation where we have this house in a town. You guys maybe heard of Glens Falls before. Remember that's in New York, right? So it's right up by the skiing mountains. It's right up by Great Escape. It's right up by Lake George. It's a great place. And so we're said this would be another great Airbnb to add to our portfolio. We've got 12 units now. Let's put another one in there. And our team's like, now we can make $50,000 to flip that. I go, yeah, but I want to hang on to that because I don't want the instant gratification now. I'd rather, I can always take the gratification out later. The market will always be, there's always time to sell that. Maybe not as hot as it is right now, maybe not go as fast, but the values aren't going to go down. They keep growing. And so
there's too much money floating around for that to happen right now, right, Glenn?
Yes.
I know, really, I know, crazy, right? I know.
Money's so cheap right now.
I know.
Too.
So anyway, so we make those decisions on a regular basis. I think that when you're looking at your life, all your listeners, you're looking at your life, you have to say to yourself, what do I really want in life? Like, what do I really want? And then what decisions do I have to make to really get there? Because if you base every decision on your instant gratification, I think you're going to wind up regretting a lot. That's just my personal opinion. Could be wrong, but I think you're going to regret a lot.
With that being said, though, I think that it is important to know that, if you are getting started in real estate or any entrepreneur venture, right now your 24 hours are filled with something. So there may have to be short-term sacrifices. You have to make.
There has to be.
The grind and the hustle and all that to get to your long-term goal of freedom so that you can live life on your terms.
Unless you're born with the silver spoon, you're going to, and this is a thing people sometimes don't want to hear, you're going to have to work evenings. You're going to have to work weekends. You're going to have to find a way to get it done. And I really appreciate what you said about playing catch with your son, because a lot of people are like, well, someday I'll get to that. Right. Yeah, some days probably doesn't come if you take that mentality. So,
right.
Yeah. I recently read a book, guys. It's been another book I was just reading. Well, what's it called? It's Wise as F. I don't know how graphic you get on this show, but we
get the point. We got you.
So Wise as F. It's a guy that all of his titles have that in the title. And one of the chapters, I've listened to it 6 times now. This one chapter is about success, and it says we keep chasing this thing that's in the future. We keep chasing this thing that we're gonna, and every time we get to a certain level, guys like us, girls like us, people like us, every time we get to it, what do? We move the goalpost. It's what we do. It's how we're wired. We can't help it. I don't even know you guys that well, but I can almost guarantee you if we sat down and had a beer, we'd be talking about the next thing we're going to do and how we're going to grow, what we're going to do. We never really get satisfied. We keep doing it over and over and over again. The point is to look up and say, I am successful now. You can have a point where you find peace and be happy with the moment that you're in right now, and realize that you've reached the goal that you set way back when. You've probably exceeded the original goal you set way back when. When you guys got started, you probably bought your first unit. I've been reading your story a little bit, and you got a unit. I think you had a smaller one first, and you grew. Your first goal was to get that one unit, the next one, but you keep growing and growing. There comes a point, though, when we have to say to ourselves, for quality of life's sake, I am successful. But what I was so worried about was if I said I was successful, that would mean that my mind wouldn't keep pushing. And I want to keep pushing. And the book was like, no, you can still push. Just appreciate the moment that you're in now. You're going to push. You don't have to push yourself to push. You're wired like that. You're
Mhm.
going
That's
to
on autopilot. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to change who you are. You're going to push, but take the moment to breathe and look at today, the exact moment you're in. He said, our life is full of past moments and things we think are going to happen in the future and plans we have, but the real life moments are right now. Us talking right now is a real life moment.
True story. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what's funny is though, as you're talking about growing these businesses and going for that next success, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to take more of your time though. And that's one of the things, like to your point, Gino,
Not if you're scaling well.
right.
Yeah.
If you're scaling well and hiring the right people and putting the right butts in the right seats, you can do that and still have the freedom that you want.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was just going to say, if I'm being completely honest with everybody on this call, I don't know that I ever thought that Gino and I would actually own 100 apartment units. And
Right.
from the time we bought our first deal, within 24 months, we were up to like 185. It was just eerie. So,
Yeah.
But anyways, gang,
Anyhow, you can't help yourself but pushing, right?
It's
But
nuts.
you got to, you guys, we all have to take a moment and say,
Yeah.
but right here, I have to breathe and say, what's most important to me of my family? What is for you? For me, it's my family, my wife, my the life where I live, the quality of life. And I want to make sure I enjoy that while I'm still pushing, if that makes sense to your listeners.
100%. Yeah. I want to dig a little deep right now. And I want to hear from both of you because we're very blessed to have two special guests on. I want to hear from each one of you. What is your best habit for success? Something maybe you do in the morning or something that is a weekly ritual that has got you sitting here right now.
You want to go?
I'll go first. So for me, it's being really present in the moment I'm in. And so I think, if I'm at work, I'm really focused and I am in that mode and I get my work done no matter what. And I just kind of let everything else go out of my mind. And when I'm at home with my kids, I don't have my phone in front of me. I don't have my laptop on. I'm spending one-on-one time for them. So for me, it's just kind of figuring out what that balance is. There's obviously all the reading the good books and putting the positive things in your mind and exercising. That certainly is a big part of it. But for me, it's really staying focused, I think.
For me, I've got to get myself primed in the day, right? I find that if I get up in the morning, and for a long time, I had a bad habit of getting up in the morning, the first thing I did, these phones are never far from us. Everybody's got their phone right next to them, right? They're
Electronic leash.
They are. It's ridiculous. And so for a long time, I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is turn over the phone. And I said to people, that's like Russian roulette. You don't know what you're going to see because you could see something that's good, like some, God knows during the politics.
Not if you have the news on, you're not going to see anything good. So.
Oh my God. Yeah. I don't care what side you're on.
Yeah.
You're going to see, they're there to zing you and get you going. And you're either going to be really happy with the day if you say, oh, that's a great text, or you get a bad text and go, oh, that sucks. And your day gets started. So for me, I make sure I wake up in the morning and I read my goals for the year. I've got my goals for the year. I haven't broken down what I want to do. I read those and I take time. I have personal goals and I have goals for each one of my businesses. And I make sure that I'm aligned with those. I take a minute to internalize those. And then at the end of my goals, I read my BHAGs, right? My big, hairy, audacious goals. I read those out to myself, just me. I'm not even out of bed yet. And then I take time. This has been a kind of a game changer for me. I take time to think of 10 things I'm grateful for that day. Because I know that I'm going to have a shit ton of stuff come my way that I'm not going to be happy about that day. There's just going to be stuff. So I take the time to look and say, what am I grateful? And it could just be grateful I woke up today. It could be grateful that the sun is shining, that the rain is whatever. I just
well, if you're on the back nine, man, you got to count each one, right?
Every one. Yeah, right. I do. Thanks for reminding me. I appreciate that. So, I'm not on the 18th hole yet. I'm not there. So, I don't think so. But no, I think I do that, and then I go into I do some reading, some personal reading of a book, and I do it through Audible, and I combine that with my exercise if I'm out running or walking or whatever. I try and make sure I try to start my day there before I take any business phone calls. It's 30 minutes for me. That's been a game changer for me. I mean, just to do that.
I was thinking too, one thing I think was really interesting for both of us is understanding ourselves better too. That was a big deal when we did the PI index, for example, and you think you're supposed to be like a certain way, but like when you found out you were an off the charts visionary and you weren't even supposed to be.
Oh, you just ruined my next section because I was going to tell Gina, I was like, all right, I guarantee Amber's the executor and Glenn's the visionary. And I was just going to say that it's the feeling I was getting here because any good combo, you need those synergies there. But, yeah, anyway.
Very true.
You do, but I think even for you, that took like some pressure off of thinking, I'm supposed to be in the weeds and handling all these problems when really he was a distractor. Like if he's in meetings and stuff,
I'm the worst.
Like, where's the next shiny object? So I think understanding yourself is also a really key component to success as well.
Yeah, but honestly, the one thing that I appreciate and I see similarities in our business is that you stayed around look, it's a single family home model and you've stayed in your lane and you've taken different spokes off of that to make sure the synergies are there. You haven't, and maybe you have a ton of Bitcoin out there. And I'm just using that for an example because that shiny object, sometimes when you get away from your core is when people get caught and get into trouble. And it sounds like you guys have done a great job at that. But,
We think so. Yeah. Do our
yeah,
best.
we think so. What about a tip for someone scaling? So they're getting into their business. They've started doing a couple flips. Maybe they're doing 10 a year, similar to where you are. What is the best tip that you can give them? Because I think that's where the rubber really hits the road for a lot of folks, whether it's success or failure. They either figure it out or they stay that's like literally, if we're going to be honest, a miserable solopreneur. Right. So
Right.
what is that one thing that you said, you know what, this is where we saw the ship really take off for us and we really started enjoying our business?
People.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got the right people, without question. I think you have to have the right. For us, we have when Amber stopped being the official integrator because it's tough to be married, have kids, and be the integrator and the boss. Yeah, it's tough to be. Yes, it can be difficult on a relationship. I mean, I'm a piece of cake to live with, which is very difficult.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think anybody believes that. They don't even know us. They don't believe it.
but I think I have two integrators, one that runs my flipping company, and one that runs our education arm, and that's been an absolute game changer. Just having the right people. You got the right people, you can scale. If you don't have the right people, you can't scale because you'll always get sucked back in the weeds, and you only have just 24 hours. And if you're always stressed on one problem, you'll never grow.
But even finding the right people required a system because we would try to hire the right people based off of just doing a normal interview and off of our gut. What person did we like the best? Did we think they were qualified? But when we implemented the EOS system and had everybody start taking the PI test and really found out what type of personality they had and whether they were a good fit for that position, that was a huge game changer.
Yeah.
And I guarantee that was all Amber and no Glenn executing that.
Totally.
Did you? Because the one thing that we really struggled with it, and it was probably our biggest mistake. So I'm glad you brought this up. Is we were just I think tight-fisted. We're like, we can't afford that next role, or we can't do that. We don't have the money for it. And I think that was the biggest mistake that we made as well. Is we didn't hire quick enough. It wasn't even not hiring the right people. We're like, oh, we can't. That's for the really big companies. We can't have an in-house HR person, and we can't have the regional manager over here. So I think that we really can resonate with that because it's just being like, you don't know what you don't know, and it's sometimes you're just being, I don't want to say cheap, but you're worried about the sustainability of the business.
Yeah.
And then there's been times, I'll give a great example where we had it was 300 apartment units, and we were running them out of one office, and they're right next to each other. We literally were struggling and not being as profitable as we should have been. We ended up biting the bullet. We split them into two offices. Okay. And literally the profitability went through the roof because it was more manageable and the systems were better once we split the two of them. And it was the best example that I could get because look, the payroll literally doubled just about. I mean, you literally doubled the payroll and the profitability went like that because we put better systems and it was more manageable in place. So I know it's hard for folks to hear that at times, but I'm telling you that you need to make sure you're investing in positions and people. So
I tell you, if this helps your listeners too, and you guys have probably thought of it this way too, I'm sure. When I first started thinking, wait, I have to hire someone that's $100,000 a year, or HR person for $150,000 a year, whatever these positions are, 80 grand for this or 50 grand for that, or, you start throwing numbers out before you know it, we're like, you want me to add 500 grand to my bottom? $500,000? What are you talking, or whatever the number is.
Then taxes, don't forget taxes and insurance. All right.
Oh yeah. You can't forget all that. But here's how I rationalize it. And here's how I get through the possible sleepless nights that I don't have is, I say to myself, look, I got 90 days to see someone's productivity. So I'm not investing $100,000 in something. I'm investing $100,000 divided by 12 times 3. So I'm going to say, okay, that person, I'm going to invest in them $8,000 a month, let's say, with taxes, benefits, maybe it's $9,000 a month. I got $27,000 to invest, and I should see a return on that $27,000 in the next 90 days. If I don't, it's the wrong person, and I should see that turnaround. And like to your point, Jake, once you put the right person in or you split a system and you doubled your payroll, you start to see it. I bet you it was within 90 days, you start to see some turn, right? You start to see a change. And so you see that right away. So if you can say to yourself, wait a minute, I had to tell my CFO, I said, look, we're going to make some changes here in this company. We're going to add this. She's like, well, we can't afford that. I go, well, so you say that, but we need 3 months of it. Oh, Right. And in 3 months, we'll see the increased revenue that will more than cover that. But as entrepreneurs, you've got to make that risk at some point. If you want to scale, you've got to make the risk. If you don't want to scale, like you said, what word did you use to call it? A miserable solopreneur, right? That's solopreneur. And that was, that's true. That's a pretty, I don't know. I guess it's all perspective, right? I don't want to insult anybody that wants to stay in that lane of being a solopreneur, but you don't really have any freedom. I mean, if you're doing everything yourself, you don't really have any freedom. You don't have any financial freedom.
We call it the I'm a mentality. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do everything. And I'm gets burned out pretty quick.
Oh yeah, and they don't realize it because they think they're saving money, but they're not saving money.
You're not an owner. You're an operator at that point.
So I think you just have to start to get yourself out of the operator box, get in the owner box, start thinking like an owner. Think to yourself, take a guy like, I hate to say Trump because everyone gets mad when you mention his name, but anybody that's a successful real estate investor, Trump, or someone that owns a basketball team, or Mark Cuban or whatever, these are guys that put the right people in the right place. They have 24 hours in the day too. Why do they do billions of dollars and we do millions of dollars? We do tens of millions, you do hundreds of millions, and they do billions. Well, what's the difference? The difference is they have the right people in the right spots, and they're not afraid to take those little risks along the way to grow. And once you start growing, growth becomes your new habit.
I like it. You mentioned a lot of books. Any other books that you want to throw out there before we start to wrap this up?
Oh gosh, a lot of them that I've read over the years, but it's no, I think that I think it depends where you're at, right? There's been so many great books. If you want to scale, Good to Great by Jim Collins is a great book that I read 13 years ago. Never read that book. That's a good one. I could list a ton of them out, but Scaling Up certainly a good book. And there's you mentioned that earlier, but I think it depends where you're at in your life, right? I think it depends what you need to hear. Like I've listened to that success chapter 6 times in the past week because it had to hit me. Like I heard it, and I would encourage people to go back. Like I said, I'm an Audible guy now, but I want to re-listen to the chapters. I don't want to just get through a book and go, I read 10 books this year. I read 13 yesterday. Who gives a crap? If nothing sticks in your head, who cares? Yeah, so I think you got to find out what resonates with you and then replay that to you. So for me, it was about, hey, you understand to enjoy what you've built because you've built something pretty impressive. And even though I never think it is, because I'll never be totally satisfied, it's just how I'm wired, probably how you're wired too. But that's where I'm at in my life. So that book I've reread several times. So.
Yeah, and I think that we are all at any given place we are in life because of our thoughts. Our thoughts create our feelings and our thoughts create our reality. And even if you're a successful person, you're still at that certain level and there might be something that's holding you back. And most of the time it's our self-limiting beliefs that hold us back. And so that same author for the other book is Gary Bishop. He also wrote Un-F Yourself. And that was a really good book too, but it talks a lot about, the power of your thoughts and what you, and the other thing I really liked about that book is, so much of like self-help and therapy is looking backwards and really, why do you want to spend time focusing on that when the future's in front of us?
Coaching is looking forward, right? Coaching is working on what's the here and now and forward, and therapy looking back.
Yep. So I really liked that book a lot. I think that was a really eye-opening book, and no matter where you are in your life, I think it could have things that are very applicable to helping you get to the next level.
Yeah.
Let the past go and let's focus on the future. All right. They just solved everybody's problems. We're out of here.
I know. It's so funny. It's so simple when you think about it, right? But we all make it so complicated. We want to hang on to that crap so bad, don't we? But you're so right, Jake. That's what it is.
And the point in his book is, everybody has that story. Well, I'm this way because. Well, I do this because and it's always because
a victim mentality.
In their childhood or something in their background. Who cares about the becauses?
Yeah.
Just move forward.
All right, Mr. Purple Shirt, give us a wrap up here.
I like the purple shirt. Give me 1 minute to wrap this up because there's a lot of stuff in here. So Glenn and Amber start fixing and flipping their first home with $80,000 in credit card debt. And let me tell everybody, it wasn't the right time to start fixing and flipping because it's right before the Great Recession. So let's put that out there right now, okay? Yeah. It's never the right time unless you're ready.
Gino. They had the upper hand.
Yeah, not just an economic downfall, but a real estate economic collapse.
And a collapse. So from that $80,000 debt, making $17,000 on your first deal, then doing your second deal and your third deal. But you know what? The fifth or sixth deal, you did lose $5,000. Continuing to scale and not being afraid of putting money back into the businesses and looking at the vision and usually really using the model in a multifaceted fashion, be able to, start the fixing and flipping. You're buying the homes for the rental real estate. Also, you're doing the education, combining all that and continuing to grow, and also coaching, using the mastermind, right? Joining a mastermind, being able to reinvest in yourself, because we always think of it as an expense, right? I think people think of it as an expense, but as entrepreneurs, you're really thinking of it as an investment in yourself. I think that's the most important thing. And also ultimately working on your values. What's valuable to you? Where are you in life right now? Your values are always changing. Your business is always changing. You're not buying the deals you bought 10 years ago because you're at a different stage in your life. So assessing your journey as you go on and being conscious and being aware and not being afraid to continue to grow, because you're either growing or you're dying. I think Glenn and Amber personify that to a T.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
Well said, sir. Glenn and Amber, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
So we do have a lot of businesses, so we tried to make it really easy. They can go to www.glennandamber.com, and that has links to all of our stuff, our home flipping workshop. That's homeflippingworkshop.com, but it's got links to our courses that we offer. It's got links to our podcast.
Yep. All that stuff.
Yep. Our YouTube channel.
Our charity work, all that kind of stuff. So
awesome.
GlennandAmber.com.
Very cool. Gang, thank you so much for your time and good luck on your move to Florida.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
very
We're
much.
looking forward to it.
Appreciate
Take
Thanks for
care,
having us.
guys.
it was fun.
Thanks.
All right.